Welcome to MedicalMarijuanaBootcamp.com. I'm Tang.
I'm Chubbs.
And today we're going to be fielding a question from the YouTube. And Shell7324, no, sorry, Demetrius Volvo says, why do you guys never use a grinder?
Why don't I use a grinder, and why do you use a grinder? Or why don't we use a grinder ever?
Yeah, so, I mean...
Do you ever use a grinder?
I use a grinder all the time. I use a Sharpstone 3-piece to be exact. And I use a grinder because it catches the pollen at the very bottom, and I like to collect that keef. And on 420, I like to smoke that keef.
Gotcha. I like scissors because, unlike a grinder, you're not as aggressively attacking the bud. When you chop the bud, not as much keef falls off. There's not as much pollen to be collected.
Yep.
So what I do is that means all the pollen's still on the bud when I put it in the bowl.
Yes, sir.
And the little bit that is left on the tray or on the table, you easily just wipe it up with your finger and just dust it right in. As far as saving it for later, I completely understand. You know, on 420 when I'm keefless, when I'm the squirrel with no nut.
Yeah.
You know, and you're over there all just living large with all that keef. Yeah. You know, then I'm hating life. But you know, all winter or all summer, and I'm smoking all that nut. You know, you got none. You know, so, you know. Speaking of, but yeah, and then also, you know, I have just back. You know, I've been blazing for a while before grinders were even around. So
it's kind of like new technology for you.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, kind of. You know, back in the day, you started with your fingers, and then when you graduated to scissors, it was like, oh, why haven't I been doing this the whole time?
Right, right.
And then when grinders came out, originally I didn't use grinders because it was a 2-piece grinder.
Yeah.
And it would just grind it to dust. There was no holes for the chunks to fall through into the second chamber of the now 3- and 4-piece grinders.
Right.
So when everybody was on the grinder craze, it was just too fine for me, and it, in my opinion, it affected the flavor of the bud when you grind it that fine.
Well, I mean, let's talk about that. So the other reason why people say don't grind your bud up is because it changes the flavor profile. Do you think that's true?
For sure. Without 100%, for me it does. The finer it is, the more spicy it is for me. I don't know if that's because the plant matter and the trichomes mix differently, or maybe you get a higher percentage of one over the other. But it just seems like if you grind it real fine, even if you roll it up after it's that fine, to me, it just seems a little spicy.
Like harsher?
Yeah, a little bit harsher, a little bit, like you can take like for me, if I chop it, with each grain is about the size of a BB, maybe a little bit bigger than a BB, is how small I call it a rough chop. And when I smoke it, it's real smooth, it's real clean. I can take that same exact bud and grind it, and it burns my throat if it's that fine. The newer grinders, like you said, the Sharpstones, they actually have holes in the bottom of the first face, so when a bud gets so small, before it gets powdered, it drops down into the next.
Right.
And those are cool. To be honest, I just haven't got around to using one on a regular basis. And
really, folks, he is a master with the scissors, and it is something to watch him chop up a big nut.
Yeah, I've done it at least.
There is a video how to chop up and
like a pro.
Like a bowl. Find that on YouTube. You'll watch him chop it up. It's crazy.
I've cut up at least an ounce or two over the years, so I figured out a good way to do it.
Sure.
And also, and lastly, the reason I don't use it is because the grinder that I did have, after a while, there was like a resin that built up inside the grinder.
Dark green resin that builds up.
Yeah, and I'm assuming that's good THC that should be in the bowl.
I've heard that argument too. I assume so.
Yeah, and if you take a paper clip, scissors, a pin or something, and you scrape it out and smoke it, it's really potent. So I'd rather be smoking that the entire time when it's fresh than let it get stale in the bottom of my grinder and pick it out later and smoke it.
That's an interesting point of view, Chubbs. Thanks for watching the Bootcamp. I'm Tang.
I'm Chubbs.
Peace.
Peace.